I'm back. So it's been like 2 weeks since I made a video, and I was working on some stuff. I had a little remix song I made for my girlfriend for our anniversary, and then we went on a cruise together. And I just wanted to make sure I was actually devoting time to her, and I didn't want her to feel like I was getting caught up in other things. So I just didn't make other videos. So that being said, I'm back now, and now we're gonna start off with what I think are the five biggest disappointments of the NFL season. So here we go. The number one biggest disappointment of the NFL season has got to be the LA Chargers. Like the LA Chargers has they've come out to a start that has been atrocious. Like it has been awful. They they don't even know how to play football. I can't believe this is the same squad. They didn't lose anyone. Melvin Gordon had his little hiatus or whatever and things like that. But like they didn't lose anyone else. I don't understand how a team that was like on the cusp of being in the Super Bowl conversation on the outside, don't get me wrong, but on the cusp of being in the Super Bowl conversation last year, go to being a team that's like probably not even gonna make the playoffs this year. I can't believe it. It's 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 mind blowing how they're in the same conversation with teams like the Tennessee Titans and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just Philip Rivers, what in the hell are you doing? Like if you take out the Miami Dolphins game, because let's be honest, the Miami Dolphins, as I said before, are a high school team. They're awful. So if you take out the Miami Dolphins game, Philip Rivers has 5 touchdowns and 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions, and 1 fumble. Um, that's awful. Like, I'm not saying that it's like the worst thing I've ever seen, but what I'm saying is for someone who has the caliber of a Philip Rivers, for a team that has the caliber of the Los Angeles Chargers, a team that is was so good last year on all ends of the team, talking defense to offense, even special teams. They the fall off is insane from last year to this year. And I just don't understand it. I literally cannot understand what happened. The next biggest disappointment, Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers, through all of the talk that they've been having, have brought up the fact that James Conner is good enough to replace Le'Veon Bell, that Juju Smith-Schuster was enough to replace Antonio Brown. I'm not saying Antonio Brown didn't need to leave because clearly he's a head case. That being said, Juju Smith-Schuster has shown an inability to separate from cornerbacks. And since he's taken the number one cornerback, it's not looking good. James Conner, now that people understand that he doesn't have the step that Le'Veon Bell has, he doesn't have the lateral movement. The way he gets through you is the stiff arm. So what they do is they just do they do chip blocks on him. So every single time he has a run, all you gotta do is shake the blocker and come to him from his left side, and he can't run. Like what I don't get is how Pittsburgh didn't see that. They still have a pretty decent offensive line, and I'm not saying that Ben Roethlisberger getting hurt didn't change any of that, but what I am saying is this. Pittsburgh is a disappointment, not because they aren't performing to the standards that people are used to. They're a disappointment for how they went about everything. They said that they didn't need to pay players because they could do it without them. And now you're just at the point where you can't do it without the players that you had in the past. These players were irreplaceable, apparently. And your season shot because of it. I I just don't know how they didn't see any of that ahead of time. The next biggest disappointment to me are these number one wide receivers. Like, they're just getting outperformed across the board by their respective number twos. I'm talking D Hop getting outperformed by Will Fuller. I'm talking Mike Evans getting outperformed by Godwin. I like it's everywhere. It is everywhere. Like I just don't understand. I don't understand how these number one wide receivers are just not showing up this year. And it might be new schemes, it might be cornerback stepping up, but like I just I'm flabbergasted. And there's some number one wide receivers that have been hurt. Devontae Adams is probably still would have been leading his team in receiving yards if he hadn't gotten hurt. Tyreek Hill, we could probably assume the same thing. But outside of like Julian Edelman, who's the number one wide receiver in New England, shit's rough. Robbie Anderson is the quote unquote number one wide receiver in Jetsville. None of them are doing anything, right? But like, even out of the ones who aren't doing anything, he's like clear cut the worst. Uh, Tyler Lockett is getting outperformed by DK Metcalf. Like, it's everywhere. Allen Robinson hadn't gotten a touchdown pass till last week. Julio Jones getting outperformed by like I just I number one wide receivers. Where y'all at? Where y'all at? I just maybe y'all took a long vacation. I just would like to see y'all show up again so that fantasy owners everywhere can feel better about themselves for taking you, DeAndre Hopkins, in the first round. Thank you. How do I say this? Yeah, I'm disappointed. I didn't think they'd be great. I didn't think they'd be great. But the next disappointment on my list is the Miami Dolphins. How do you just stop caring? How do you how do you convince 52 grown ass men to not win a game? Because they're not trying. They there's no singular way that this team can be this bad on accident. There's no way. There's no way. There's I don't get it. I don't it's astonishing how bad they are when they weren't that bad last year, and they've only lost like three pieces, right? They lost Kenny Stills when the trade happened. They've lost Laramie Tunsil uh, for their offensive line piece, but they still have weapons in the wide receiver game. Devontae Parker's still a legitimate wide receiver. I don't get it. I just they're awful, and their defense awful. Their kicker awful. Their quarterback awful. Running backs awful. Offensive line awful. Coach awful. GM awful. Owner awful. The Heat awful. The state they live in awful. Everything about everything. The only thing that's worse than them is the field that the Oakland Raiders play on. That's it. The Miami Dolphins are worse than my high school football team when we went to state. That's all I got to say about that. And my last disappointment is the fact that the season's already a quarter of the way over. Football goes by so fast, and I just don't have enough time to fully cherish and like love it with all that I can. I can't believe that football season's already a quarter of the way over. So understand from me, love things while you have them, 'cause you don't want to wait until it's gone to realize how much you loved it. So everything in your life that you love, even if they're the Miami Dolphins, just love them as much as you can before you can't love them anymore. But yeah, that's the end of the video. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You know I love when you show some love. But yeah, I make videos every Friday. Peace.